joining me right now on the phone. His tweet this morning certainly got our attention. We had Emmanuel Sanders on the show yesterday, and I asked Emmanuel if there was a preseason game right now, tonight, would the Saints and would other members of the NFL not play it? He said that they would, that he didn't see, why taking away a game in which his colleagues would need it to make a team would be something that the rest of the NFL players would be willing to do. But again, let's put Jim Trotter's tweet up here. NFL owners should be careful. A few prominent black players are telling me they want to sit out a game to make their feelings felt and force change action. They're tired, frustrated, and emotional. Only a few at this point, but sparks become flames and flames become infernos. Very vivid imagery from my colleague from the NFL Media Group, Jim Trotter, back here on the show. How are you, Jim?
I'm good. How you doing,
I
Rich?
appreciate your patience hanging on hold here on this Friday.
No problem. I love hearing about the RichEisenShow.com.
I appreciate. You know what? My phrase is, if not me, who, and if not now, when. So okay.
It applies to so many things in life.
No doubt. So walk me through your tweet and all the way from your information gathering to you hitting send on it.
Yeah, Rich, I had been hearing some of this yesterday, and particularly after the Lions decided to cancel practice. And even within team buildings and team meetings, there have been players who have brought this up and raised the idea of players sitting out games. But I guess what really got me this morning in the 6 o'clock hour, I got a call from a player, a very prominent player, and he was really emotional about it and said he had been crying for 3 days and said enough's enough. And he believed that a real statement and cause for action could be made by black players sitting out a game. And it was something he was going to talk to other players about. So, again, people want to go from A to Z right away when a tweet is put out. And that's why I tried to make it clear that this is not some large group of players that I've heard from. It is a few, but the fact that a few prominent players are talking about it could spark sort of a movement among these guys. And it I'm not going to lie to you, Rich, the call this morning was unsettling, to hear a man that emotional and that much pain about what's going on. It truly is bigger than football for some of these guys, and that's why I think the owners would be smart to be proactive on this instead of reactive. And what we know about the NFL traditionally is that it is a reactive league and not a proactive league. And if it doesn't prepare for this, potentially it could not be pretty.
Well, and again, I'm going to have this conversation with Chris Haynes of Yahoo, whose report today about what the players discussed Wednesday night after the cancellation of games. The conversation that apparently the players even had first blush in the NBA on Wednesday night is similar to, I guess the question I'm going to have here is what would be considered concrete enough action to prevent a player from sitting out, or this player that you spoke to today?
The answer is different for everyone, obviously. I mean, players aren't a monolith, But I would say at the end of the day, the one thing that all of the black players that I talked to want is for unarmed black people to stop being killed by the police.
By the way, plus one on that, Jim.
So how do we get there becomes the question. And I think with players at this point who are starting to discover their voice and starting to discover their power and how much power there is in unity, I think what they would like to see, at least what I'm hearing from owners, is they want to see the owners step out front and be a partner in this and not just put out statements and make donations, but to actually be out front and use their political capital and political influence that they have to try and make change. And and I've thrown this out there, and this has not come from a player, it's just me speaking, is that we know the league is involved with a voter registration drive, which is tremendous, and there is talk of opening up stadiums for polling places. But how about if the owners got out front on camera with their players and said, for instance, we want and we demand that the voter rights reform bill by the late John Lewis be put on the Senate floor, which Mitch McConnell has not brought to the floor. Those sorts of things are action. Those sorts of things can lead to change. And I think that's what players are looking for now from ownership, is to step out front with them, to be visible, and to try and make change. And what I was told yesterday by a union source is that back in 2018, when the NFL and the Players Association were discussing changes to the anthem policy, that one of the things players left there with was a sense and a feeling from some owners that these owners were going to use their political influence, and that's the term that was used to me, political influence, to make real change. And so now it is about that. I think players want to hold owners accountable on this. And so I think that that's a step in terms of moving it in the right direction. Because, look, Rich, the reality is that the players have demonstrated to raise awareness, they have sparked conversations, and yet unarmed black people are still being killed by the police. That's the reality.
Jim Trotter, my colleague from the NFL Media Group here on the Rich Eisen Show. Well, what have you spoken to any players about? I guess would the Ravens statement that was remarkable in its detail that I've never seen something like that from a sports franchise, let alone an NFL franchise. Is that something that would be considered substantial?
Sure, but if you read the statement, and I applaud the statement as I did yesterday, but if you read the statement that says we can demand these things, well, let's take out the word can and just say we demand these things. I mean, it's one word we're omitting there, but it makes a world of difference in terms of possible change. So, and I'm not trying to in any way put down what the Ravens did. I think it was tremendous to have an ownership group step out front and recognize the core issue of what's going on here, just as the 49ers did when they put out their statement back in the day about systemic racism being at the core of everything that is happening here. So, but let's take out what we can do and let's say, let's do it, Stop talking and be about the action.
What did you think, Jim, and what other players that you're speaking to think of the commissioner's appearance on Emmanuel Acho's program?
Truly, Rich, I haven't talked to them about that, and I think you know my feelings on it because I spoke on it on air. In my opinion, that was not uncomfortable at all. The only ones that was uncomfortable for were for the listeners who were waiting to hear real questions be asked of the commissioner on that. Look, when the commissioner says we could have listened earlier, well, you heard the players for 2 years. You saw them demonstrate. You heard what they wanted. You even negotiated with the Players Coalition to come up with a program to try and address some of these issues. So to say that you didn't listen, that's not true. You heard them. You chose not to listen. You chose not to act on it because after 2 years you went into an owners meeting and changed the anthem policy to prevent players from demonstrating on the field during the Star-Spangled Banner. So, again, if I'm doing that interview with the commissioner, among the things I said that I would like to have heard ask is, number one, we know that the commissioner's father stood up on principle, stood against President Nixon during the Vietnam War at the cost of his job, showed tremendous courage. Well, I wonder, did the commissioner think about that when he was thinking about how to handle the Colin Kaepernick situation when Colin took a knee? Back in 2018 when the owners changed the anthem policy, was there ever any consideration given to the fact that when you change that policy to prevent these players from demonstrating on the field during the anthem, that the appearance is that you value your pocketbooks more than you value a black life? Back in 2006, when Roger was named commissioner, he went out and met with Dr. Harry Edwards. And Dr. Harry Edwards told him at that time, the demographics of the league are changing, and more black players are coming in, and they're going to become the face of the league, and they are not going to leave their communities at the locker room door. So with a decade to prepare for that moment, how is it that the NFL was so unprepared when Colin took a knee? And lastly, after he took a knee, Dr. Edwards also told Roger, do not make him a martyr. And yet the owners turned around and made Colin a martyr. So for me, those are things that I would want to hear answered, if I were doing the interview with the commissioner at that point, just some of the things.
So that's what you thought of the interview, huh?
That's what I thought of it.
Oh, so what's the next?
It made me uncomfortable.
Well, so what's the next step, Jim? What do you think here?
The next step is action, Rich. It's not about talk anymore. It's not even about demonstrating anymore. It's about action now. And if the NFL is a family, as we've seen in the slogans and the ads and this, that, and the other on television and whatnot, then owners, step with your players. If you believe that what they are fighting for is right, then stand out front with them and make change. Use that political capital. Look, we know it's been reported that 9 of the top 16 sports donors to President Trump's inauguration or re-election campaign were NFL owners. And you only pay that kind of money for access and influence. Well, now use that access, use that influence to try and make real change, to make legislative change, systemic change. That, to me, is progress in this fight because, look, Rich, this isn't going to be solved in a day. It's not even going to be solved in a year, But what you do now lays the foundation for what comes going forward. And for instance, when I talked to that player this morning, he said, we understand, that we're trying to do something for the generation that's going to come behind us. So to discount or to minimize what these players are feeling and what they are thinking, in my opinion, would be a grave mistake by the owners in the NFL at this point.
Last one for you, Jim. Where is Kaepernick now? What is happening with him?
Don't know.
Football, also, being public, face front, social justice wise. He does a lot of stuff, as we know, with his organization behind the scenes, or
right.
Let's just put it this way: not publicly to put out a statement, right? Like he does,
right.
He does things. But the question is like, what now? I'm like, where is he right now? You don't know, huh? Nobody knows.
I don't know.
I hear nothing. I hear nothing. I really hear nothing.
We've been told that, but I can't speak on where he is or what's happening right now.
Is that odd to you, or is this, what do you think, Jim? Seriously. About it.
No, it's not. Look, Colin has made a decision on how he wants to go about handling this, and even back in as recently, I shouldn't say as recently, but as far back as 2017, 2018, I was told that one of the reasons he does not speak a lot publicly is because he does not want the media to be able to twist his words and change the narrative, as they did when he took a knee during the anthem. So I understand that, but then you have another group that says, look, if you want to be the face of this, then you have to be out front on it. He has chosen to handle it this way. That's his prerogative.
Jim, I really appreciate it, and I always appreciate when you come on the show, and we'll chat again soon. Football's literally right around the corner, and it's exciting, and it's also anxious. There's a lot going on, but it sure looks like this is going to go off in a couple weeks.
Rich, you got to have me on next time to talk about something lighter.
Jim, how about next week? But you never know.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll have you on it because, I'd love to talk with you about, the game. But obviously, the real world is bigger than the game.
No question.
So thanks for the time. Appreciate it, Jim.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, I know, Jim. But your tweet certainly caught my eye. So I just wanted to have you on to get a little bit more information behind it, and I appreciate you delivering it.
RichEisenShow.com.
That's true.
I got you, brother.
That's right. Thank you very much, Jim. That's Jim Trotter, everybody. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. There we go. It's Jim Trotter _NFL, right? So just get it out there as well.
Yes.
He's mentioning we should return in kind.
Yes.